how much did you know about me before you wrote that story?
Your story is just literally every line. I mean, seriously.
And just seeing that happen again in your story, well, that's just, that can't be a coincidence, obviously.
That's fantastic. Wow.
So there's some pieces of that story that are quite profound and are right in reality.
Shariah said, I want my light to shine, Jasmine. Jasmine kissed Shariah's forehead and said, glow. Let your glory shine. You're worthy, Shariah. Therefore, Shariah turned away from her magical mentor and faced the dark forest before her.
Jurri, it's just incredible. It's so Holy Spirit inspired. And that's why it moves me to tears, because I just felt like he literally spoke to you. He literally spoke to you about me.
Want to know what story you're in? Discover your own tale in books written about you. Imagine a library in heaven that contains books with stories written about you and me. These stories could be in any genre, from fantasy, mystery, action-adventure, or romance. Do you want to know what story you're in?
I love that you are using what you have in a powerful way to reach people that's outside of the box.
Yeah.
You're using your skill set to lower the wall that would keep people from wanting to receive, and you're releasing what you have in a way that can be received by someone who doesn't yet know the love of God.
Yeah.
And I really commend you for that. It is a forerunning that you are doing.
Thank you.
You're pioneering it.
Yeah.
A couple people text me, what does this mean, when I sent them the link.
Right.
I've never heard of this before. That's right, because I think Jurri's the only one doing it. And I really commend you for it.
Thank you. Marcia and Edwin, thank you.
Order a personalized, revelatory, unique story to discover the glory inside your heart. Peer into the pages of the Father. Become a legend and discover your identity and destiny here in Legends of the Wind. Click the link, order now.
And hello and welcome to the Legends of the Wind podcast. I'm Jurri Schenck. Thank you for joining us. And in studio today, we have our guest, Cristy Meier.
Hi, Jurri.
How are you?
I'm all right. A little nervous, but I'm all right.
It's going to be great.
Yes.
So everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. We're excited about tonight's show. So I would like to welcome you to Legends of the Wind. And what is that? Legends of the Wind is where we combine the prophetic gifting with the creative arts. And what we do here is we tell stories that help bring revelation to your identity and destiny, to bring you encouragement, strength, hope, revelation for where you're going in your future and who you are today, and also how you can overcome your difficulties. All sorts of things are done in that storytelling. And so Cristy and I have known each other. We grew up together here in my hometown of Thermopolis. And most of the time when I write a story for my guest, I don't know this person at all. And I usually meet them about 15 minutes before the show. Now with Cristy, it's a bit different.
Yes.
So you were telling us at dinner tonight
Yes.
what you wanted to share with the audience about how you could prepare them about what I know about you, that kind of thing.
I would say, Jurri has known me since high school, but we have gone for periods of time where we haven't been able to connect. So we've each been leading our own lives, and but there's been a lot of awesomeness that's happened in between then and now.
Yeah. And so what I do is, if I do know a person that I write for, I take what I know and I set it aside. And I go and I look in the library heavens, what I call it. And so this is a gift for Cristy. I wanted to encourage her in her time. And so the story tonight is called A Time to Dine and A Time to Forgive. And so Cristy, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and tell them of any shows that you've watched prior.
Of any shows well, I find that as I watched your shows previously, I find that I connect with the other stories. Just there's little pieces in these stories that, even though it has nothing to do with me, I'm connecting with that story. There's something in there that is inspiring me to be positive or more caring adventurous, all kinds of themes.
That's great. Thank you very much for watching. And so one of the things I want to help people understand regarding how to receive a prophetic story is that, Cristy, we talked about this earlier, is that these stories are not meant to be taken literally. Even though there may be a realistic sense on some angle for her or anybody's story, they're meant to be understood symbolically. It's kind of like dream language or dream interpretation, where we look at the function of something, not the form. And so that's what happens as I unpack the stories. And so what we want to do is we want to treat the story as a revelation, and then we have a conversation afterward, and that's where we get the interpretation. We unpack it. And the goal for you, Cristy, is what is the application for you? How will you take this story and put it into your life? What will you do with it? And for you in the audience, it's the same thing. You can listen to someone else's story and learn from that and find out what you can do yourself.
Yes.
And it's all about empowerment and encouragement. Does that make sense?
It does.
Cool.
Yes.
Well, everybody, thank you very much for being part of the show. If you haven't done so already, would you hit the like button and the subscribe button and hit the notification bell? That way you can be alerted of future broadcasts. So thank you very much. Now, Cristy, part of the process of setting up a story is to let you as the guest know that you have power.
Yes.
You have a choice. You can say, yes, I accept this prophetic story, or no, I do not. Or you may need to marinate in it and have some time to process parts of it.
Right.
And that's the ability that you have the freedom to do that. Does it make sense?
It does.
Okay, cool. Very good. So everybody who's watching, thank you very much. We invite the chat in the conversation. We'd love your comments. We'd love your questions. We love your interaction. And for those of you who are part of Cristy's life, whether you're family or friends, please say hi to Cristy in the chat right now if you don't mind. Let us know that you're here and offering your encouragement and support to her too. Thank you. Great. Okay, well, without any further ado, it's story time. All right, here we go. A time to dine, a time to forgive. There was chaos in the kitchen, and the oven cooking the Thanksgiving turkey burnt it to a crisp, and Cristy was not a happy camper. This holiday season was especially important to her because of her love for family. There were other times in the past during the holidays that were not as pleasant. Thus, this burnt turkey in the oven resurfaced all the pain and anger from her history. The fury in her heart, to say the least, was very intense. There were emotions she would always push down and hide. Cristy felt very unsafe sharing her true thoughts and feelings with others. Because of this repression, her health declined. Cristy realized why the oven burned the turkey. She had set the dial to high of a temperature, and she didn't start the timer. With all the distractions around Cristy, the carbon footprint of the burnt turkey left its mark on the kitchen's atmosphere. Smoke billowed out, and Cristy opened the window and tried to rescue the bird. It was by far too late. Plan B! What am I going to do for dinner? Cried out Cristy with a desperate heart. The freezer was the saving grace. Cristy dug around and found some frozen pizzas she loved. They were the kind with rising dough and toppings and sauce that tasted good. With these two pies, Cristy saved Thanksgiving. Was it what she wanted? No, of course not, but she felt a duty to her family. This time, she paid more attention and set the proper temperature and time. As the pizza cooking began, various family members tried to enter the kitchen to help, but Cristy wanted to be alone and focus on all the side dishes. Cristy assigned her husband and daughter to set the table. Inside Cristy's heart was a panic that bubbled up. She kept thinking about the burnt turkey. The smoke from the oven was almost gone, but the triggering effect remained and was getting stronger. Cristy stirred the pots and pushed the buttons on the microwave. Everything seemed to be in a rush. Her other family members saw this energy well up in her, and they determined to let her be and set up the dining room. All of them knew how important this meal was to her. They completed setting up everything. The pizzas and side dishes appeared on the table. Everyone sat down, and Cristy went to say grace. She held hands with her husband, and the family joined. Cristy was about to open up her mouth and pray yet her mind went blank. All she could say was, "Heavenly Father." There was a pause, and Cristy couldn't put her words together. She tried again. "Heavenly Father?" Cristy cleared her throat and said, "Heavenly?" And with that last word, her voice cracked, and she cried. It wasn't a loud bawling of tears, but a slow weeping of emotions. 2 streams filled her eyes, and they dripped down her cheeks. Cristy couldn't see well, and she lowered her head. "Excuse me," said Cristy, and she got up to leave the table. In the bathroom, Cristy sat on the toilet lid with several tissues in her hand. "What is wrong with me?" she asked herself. There was a knock at the door. Her husband called from the other side. "Honey, you okay? Can I help you?" "No, I'm fine. Just give me a minute," replied Cristy. Cristy stood up and went to the sink and washed her face. Her makeup had melted down. She needed to clean up. As she washed her face, she saw her reflection in the mirror. There was that panic feeling in her heart again. "You ruined the holidays again, Cristy," she told herself in the mirror, with some disdain in her voice. "Why can't you function better?" Cristy turned away from the mirror, but in the reflection, her body stayed and didn't move. Her reflection called out, "Cristy, why can't you treat yourself better?" Utter shock and surprise grabbed Cristy's attention, and she spun around to look back at the mirror. "What? Who are you?" The reflection smiled and was a little coy. She replied, "You're me. I am you." Cristy's eyes were wide as dinner plates. She asked, "How in the world are you speaking to me?" The reflection shifted her weight, leaned forward, and replied, "You've been too angry for too long, my dear. I am your heart speaking. You have been stabbing me in the chest for years." "How did I do that?" Cristy asked, still wide-eyed. "Every word, every curse, every accusation about yourself to me has stung my heart, stung me. I know your inner dialogue. I hear it all the time, all day, all night. I have been trying to reach you in your dreams, but you have shut me down. But today I've come to set you free and to reconcile," replied the reflection. "But how do we do that?" asked Cristy a little more calmly. The reflection replied, "Many people have hurt you, Cristy. You have tried to forgive them, yes. You have pushed others away. But with all this grief, you have pushed yourself away. You are learning about those who accuse you, but you cannot forget what you said about yourself." Cristy's face became sad, and she lowered her head. She took a tissue and wiped her eyes. There was still some more mascara on her eyes, and the black ink dripped down again. "Will you allow me to instruct you?" asked the reflection. Cristy nodded her head and said, "Okay." "Wash your face. Be gentle and kind with the soap," said the reflection. Cristy turned on the warm water and made some soapy suds and washed the makeup away. The reflection mirrored her action as Cristy cleaned up. The reflection spoke again and said, "Look at me. Look at yourself. Say these words, 'I bless you, Cristy.'" Cristy echoed, "I bless you, Cristy." The reflection spoke more. "I wash away all my shame and hatred." Cristy repeated the words. The reflection continued and said, "You are my favorite friend and I love you." Cristy repeated those words and laughed a little. The reflection added, "I am not your enemy. I forgive you for all your mistakes. You are not a failure." Cristy paused as she processed these words. She inhaled and said, "I am not your enemy. I forgive you for all your mistakes. You are not a failure." Cristy paused and said, "You are the most wonderful person I have ever met. You are good. You are lovely. You are my treasure." Cristy gained more energy and passion. She continued, I forgive you for everything. I forgive you for burning the turkey. I forgive you for pushing you away. I forgive you for stabbing in the heart with my words. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Cristy grabbed the sink with both hands and lowered her head. The reflection smiled and reached through the glass with her hand and held Cristy's cheek. The reflection lifted Cristy's face to look at her, and the reflection smiled even more and said, I forgive you. Go and sin no more. You are free, Cristy. I am your heart, and I love you and set you free. Cristy touched the reflection's hand, smiled, and said, Thank you. I didn't know. I didn't know I did this. The reflection replied, That's why I came to you today. Go and eat. Your family is waiting for you. Okay, said Cristy. In the next couple of minutes, Cristy put herself back together with a minimal amount of makeup, straightened her hair and clothing, and exited the bathroom. In the dining room, Cristy saw her family was still eating, and she sat down. Her husband said, You look nice, honey. Are you doing better? Cristy nodded and kissed him on the cheek. She replied, Yes, thank you. Let's eat. Cristy's daughter looked up, and with food in her mouth, she said, But we're already eating, Mom. Cristy laughed and said, Right. Now, how is the pizza? Can you please pass the potatoes and gravy? While Cristy ate, she watched all of her family for Thanksgiving and smiled. Together they bonded in even greater ways. Cristy pondered about her conversation in the bathroom and wondered if she could have more. Meeting her reflection and speaking love and reconciliation to herself was one of the most powerful experiences she ever had. Cristy learned something important that day. She remembered it is important to love yourself just as you are to love your neighbor. Inception.
Very good, sir.
Thank you. You doing okay?
I'm good. Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, this is always the transition time. So, what I like to talk about is the word inceptio. So, most films and novels will end with the end, right? Well, what we do here is we do something different. I talk about you, or the guest, and it says this is who they are, and this is where they're going to go into their future, where you can finish your story. And inceptio is Latin for the beginning. It's not the end. You have a new beginning. So tell me, how does this story speak to you? Where do you want to start?
Probably at the beginning, because when you brought up the burnt turkey, that is just something I would do. That's just, I would, exactly the way you even said it, which is funny because you've never seen me cook turkey.
No, I've never have.
You've never been in my house. So just the struggles that I had, and whenever I went into the bathroom, that's how I would take myself and I would put myself together just like that, and I would have those struggles with myself. The conversations that I had in the mirror, those are conversations that I have had. And so for you to be able to pick up on that, it was just amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Thank you. Well, we have some chat people here in the audience. Mike Smith and Alisha say hello. Hi, Jurri and Cristy. Kathy McDonald, hello. How can we self-sabotage ourselves? We are our own worst critics. God loves us unconditionally. And she also says, speaking love to ourselves is very important, and we need to do this weekly. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Awesome.
That's beautiful. So let's kind of go into some specifics.
Okay.
What is in your story that is specifically there that you can identify with?
Trying to be the perfect cook at holiday times, make sure that everything is just as it should be. And that is exactly, because if it goes together that way, then everything else goes together just fine. Or at least that's the working theory that you
right. And many of us, I know our moms and aunties, whatever, will struggle with the Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
pizza would be a very good option for our household. So the fact that you had pizza, I was like, that would be perfect.
Great.
So,
Wow.
yeah,
Right.
it was awesome.
So the struggle. So you sat down at dinner and you couldn't even say grace.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
That I have been moved in the spirit so much, I have to stop and take a breath because God's telling me, you know what? You need to take a breath before you open that mouth, even if it's for grace. And my words get taken from me.
So the fact that you couldn't pray actually has happened?
Yes, there have been times where I was so, bound up that I couldn't pray. And I know how, but the words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. And for you to be able to, that is a sensitive point for me.
Sensitive.
Yeah, sensitive point.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was really amazing how you picked up on all that.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow, this is great. And so obviously you're being moved by the Spirit, but in this story you were very stressed out, right?
Yes.
So obviously that's still true to you in real life, right?
It is. Oh, okay. Absolutely.
Very good. And then you mentioned going to the bathroom. So let's talk about the reflection.
Yes.
So I know that I'm reading the story and doing the performance of reading it. So I'm not necessarily watching you. I have to watch the replay. I do. And so I can watch her reaction. But where in that conversation did things start connecting for you?
I would, you look in that mirror and you have those thoughts. And then what if your reflection did start speaking to you back? Are you going to want to hear what that has to say? Because it may be good, it may be bad, but it's the truth because it's right back at you.
Yeah.
So you have to face your truth. But also in a very soft, loving manner where you had the character reaching out and putting her hand on the cheek.
Yeah.
And that's something that we do in our family.
Really?
Yes.
When there's tough times.
When there's tough times, I will often cut my children's cheeks when things are really tough.
Really?
So you would have had no way to know
I
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Wow.
That's all. Good job, dude.
Wow. So, just so those of you who are new to the show, I don't interview or research people I write for. And even though I've known Cristy from growing up, I haven't had much interaction with her even here in my hometown. And I've never been to her home. I've never seen her cook or do family.
Or even had to eat my cooking.
And so this is the prophetic gift merging with the storytelling. And so I'm a little caught by that. So the fact that is a moment.
And those are inner struggles that I do face, speaking to myself in such manners, which of course we're not supposed to. But
right.
When your world has just come.
Well, let me gently talk about that if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
So, has self-sabotage or self-accusation?
Both.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I fought with both of those for many years. The talk inside my head, the whole, that language.
Internal dialogue.
Yes, internal dialogue. You even were saying things that I was thinking that I would have said and you picked up on that.
Wow.
So wow.
And one thing I love is that the reflection was guiding you, but then you took over. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
That was so cool because
that was awesome.
When I was getting the download earlier, that was a surprise even to me as I was writing it. And she goes, she was told you're not a failure, but then you continued. You are the most wonderful person I've ever met. You are good. You are lovely. You are my treasure. And then you gained energy and forgave yourself with those things. It's so.
Self-forgiveness has been something that I've struggled with for many, many years. And so having to face that,
Yes.
and whether I'm going to go ahead and forgive myself for the things that I've said and done. And
Yeah, I want to talk about some of this about from myself.
Yep.
So as growing up in my life, growing up was really tough for a lot of reasons. Some of it you
Right.
were part of.
Yes.
And thank you for defending me.
Anytime.
And so going out of college and into life, into the career life in LA, I had to learn to become my own parent. And I actually had like this dream or vision or something where I met a little Jurri.
Yes.
And I had to become a dad and a mom to me.
Yep.
In that relationship. And with these prophetic stories, using the imagination, I trained myself to become that person or the parent to that little boy.
Yes.
And I think that we're all still learning to do that, right?
Well, and speaking to your younger self, that's actually something counselors encourage you
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
And going back and looking at your younger self, you realize it's not quite that bad.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh, it's not quite that bad after all.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps you see things in, I
Yeah.
think, a better perspective.
That's good. I always heard someone say that young children are great observers, but terrible interpreters.
Amen.
Wow. So we have a bunch of comments.
Ooh,
let's
fun.
look at this. Okay. Thank you guys. Jenny Wheeler. Hey, Jen. Good to hear from you. Thank you for reading. And your notes are great. Mike Smith says, I have beat myself up. Let's put this on the screen. Let's see. I have beat myself up way too many times, a lot due to what others have said to me during my life. I realize finally that I am not a failure. None of us are. Wow. And Jen loves that. Amen to that. Mike continues, we are who God says we are. We are not who others say we are. Brilliant.
Yes.
And then Jen continues, it wasn't your fault. This came to my mind. Not sure if it means something to you. I mean, even if it is our fault, whether it's our fault or not, we still have to do the work, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if it isn't our fault, thank God, right? You know, when we learn, I didn't screw up, or was the
that
other...
wasn't me? Okay, cool.
Wow, that's great. My parents are watching. Thank you. Dad and I are blown away. Alicia says, you're amazing. And you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
wow.
thank you.
And so we talk about the stories of Revelation, right?
Yes.
We're talking about interpretation. Mm-hmm. What else, Cristy, can you interpret in your story? What else is there?
I would say that my need for perfection is high, and that's something that I do struggle with is that on a daily basis. So getting frustrated with a meal and then everything kind of snowballing.
Yeah. I've had to give grace and mercy to myself.
Yes.
You know, as a husband, the most common thing I say is I'm sorry.
Yes.
And it's true. It's not a slam on my wife or myself. It's just I'm sorry. And whenever I fail, if I fail at home or I fail at work or anywhere, I had to learn to be kind to myself.
Yes.
And I think that's what the reflections do.
Yeah,
you
more
know?
so, yes, I agree.
And so one of the remedies that I'm still in process on is my identity. And isn't it funny? That's what a mirror is, right? It's the function of identity. So I was telling one of the students I was working with, I teach English, conversational English to Korean kids. And one of the things I was sharing with them was that whether are you going to allow your mistakes or what other people say define you? Because she was saying, the kid was saying to me, isn't your mind the mirror of the world? And I said to her, well, I want my mind to not mirror the world. I want my mind to mirror heaven and the love and the peace that's there. Makes sense?
Yes.
And so all of us come into this world with an orphaned heart. What is that? It means that we don't have someone who loves us and belongs, a mom and a dad. And even if we can have a mom and dad, we still have an orphaned heart. Well, that means that we need to be connected to our Heavenly Father. And that comes through a process of growing and maturing. Also, a lot of healing. We all know about trauma, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Absolutely.
And so our people, our family, our life, people in our life, we need to know the love, the acceptance. And so if we grow in our identity, where we know we're not a foreigner or not an orphan or a widow, but we're loved, we belong, we're accepted. And so part of it, like, is accepting yourself.
Yeah, and you just everything that you just said.
Yeah.
It actually, you just put it all down on paper, and there I am. It was, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how, hopefully, when there are mistakes or difficulties, we can ease our ways. Go ahead.
Be more forgiving of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have a better idea of our own identity,
Yeah.
then I think it would be easier to be able to walk away from that mirror and not stand there and beat yourself up.
That is true. That is so true. That's perfect. Thank you. So if you have more comments in the chat or questions, please feel free. Now, you asked me at dinner tonight to remind you of some books.
Oh, yes.
So I have them
Oh, yes.
somewhere, I think.
I
So
started-
you were going to share some things.
Yes.
So go ahead and talk about these.
All right. Well,
Tell the audience who they are, or what they are, so they.
all right. So the first book that I read through Emotional Healing in 3 Easy Steps. And
It's by Praying Medic.
yes, by Praying Medic. And he puts everything in language that I understand, which is really important, as you know. But I have a lot of aha moments.
Oh, okay.
Whenever I'm reading his material, he really makes sense on so many levels. It helps you understand, A, B, C. You have to take one step at a time.
Okay.
And you don't really think about operating in the courts of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
what that would entail.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the organization is what it
Mm-hmm.
looks like to me.
So for the audience who doesn't know these books, and you've
Yes.
been reading, thank you. I recommended these to her
Yes.
Earlier. And so tell the audience about some of those steps and what has happened in your aha moments.
Well, I would. My brain's
It's
just
okay.
slipped a little bit.
It's okay. So you can talk about this one, the
Mm-hmm.
courts, or the healing, whatever you want.
Well, with the healing, I was able to go through and break down. He keeps it very, very simple,
Mm-hmm.
and has it where, like, you have a trigger alert. You don't even realize that you have those, and then you read about it, and you're like, yes, I do that. It gives you options on how to get into a better state of mind and become more connected.
So what's some ahas that you've had?
I would have to say when he's praying over the patients and he couldn't get it to work, and he's like, what am I doing wrong? And it's like, well, for one, you're not the one supposed to be doing it. It's God.
Okay.
And that's where I connect the most,
Mm-hmm.
is because I'm really bad about saying, well, I need to do this and I need to do that, and not giving credit where it goes.
Okay.
So, no, it just helps you connect a little bit more easier with God. And
Good. So one thing I love about Praying Medic stuff is that it is about dealing with trauma.
yes,
So you talked about triggers, right?
Yes.
If you have a trauma issue, then things can trigger it. And it can be the most random things even.
yes,
And so in this book, he talks about what do you do with it? And he talks about trading it. So you've heard the song, I'm trading my sorrows, or the scripture saying, exchange your sadness and grief for joy and the oil of gladness, that kind of thing. So the idea is that if you are aware of what's happening, is surfacing, kind of like in the story, right? The story, the burnt turkey was a trigger moment,
Yes.
right? And that surfaced a lot of grief. That can be a good thing because that means your soul's ready to deal with it, right?
Absolutely.
And then what you do is you say, I have this grief or whatever it is, this emotion, and I give it to you, and I ask for your healing and peace or whatever it is in return.
Yes.
And then he talks about how do you know when it's done? It means that there's no more triggering.
Yes.
So I want to encourage you. So I was, I was at the high school track meet the other day here in town, and I saw the runners for the 1600, which is the mile race, and kids were exhausted. Some of the girls were crying because they were so emotional. And I saw their family and friends and coaches coming around them, hugging them and encouraging them, saying, I'm so proud of you. When I heard those words, I knew that that word was for you today.
Yes.
I am extremely proud of you. You have been through multiple hells, some things I don't even know, and yet you are still standing. And you're still here for your family and for yourself. And I think today's story is about being there for yourself. Because if you can't take care of you, how in the world are you going to be there for your husband or your family, right?
Oh, I hear that a lot through the years.
So I am proud of you, and this stuff is for you. This story is for you, and for you as well in the audience. I think everybody hearing this story and talking about this conversation, we all get it. We all need this. We all need the love and affirmation and the practical healing.
Well, and even with the way you had me interacting with my family, that came to mind just right quick. I'm sorry I had to add that in.
Okay.
But what my daughter would say, how my husband would come to the door.
This is good.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. One thing that these stories do is that these are encounters. So you can go to a church or a therapist or a conference and have someone prophesy. You might record those meetings. You may transcribe them and try to go, okay, that's what this person was saying. What's different about these is this isn't church. This isn't a prophetic word. This is a story. It's a creative art. But what it is, it's an encounter. Part of when you go to a movie is you vicariously put yourself in the hero's shoes and go on the adventure with them, and you're like invested in them. You go to a church sermon, you may fall asleep because the pastor or preacher is droning on. But in a story, you're emotionally attentive.
Yes.
And so for you, Cristy, I'll give you this copy, okay?
Okay.
And I will email you.
Okay.
But what it is, it's an experience.
Yes.
And you've said multiple times tonight that this was accurate about you,
Yes.
your family. And now you have a record.
Yes.
Now she has an anchor. And what's so cool about heavenly experiences is that you can always go back into them.
Yes.
You can go back into that experience and continue the storytelling, continue the experience. If you have a dream, like you fall asleep at night and you have a dream, you can go back into the dream. If you have a time of prayer or journaling, and Father or Jesus says something to you, you can always go back and be participating in it and experiencing it. It's more than just knowledge or information, right?
Right.
Sound good?
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting how the same phrase can mean so different each time you read it.
Different meanings?
Yeah, different meanings in your lives.
Yeah. That's good. And that's a cool thing because you can hear the same movie, the same story, and experience things new again, right? So Jen adds to the conversation, Cristy, what are some fun things you would want to do for yourself? That's a great question.
That's a great question.
There's a saying from a saint, I think it's Saint Irenaeus. He says, the glory of God is the heart of man fully alive. So with Jen's question, what would you do fun for yourself? What would that be? what would be making you come alive?
I would say to do something for myself. I enjoy taking photographs and just going out and just having that time to have that peace.
That's good. And then you can document it too.
Yes, and look back at it later and maybe get some insight on a few things that were going on at the time.
Would you do that alone, or would you do that with your husband, or how
both.
would you? Okay.
Normally, I chew on something for a while, and then I'll go to my husband or whoever and say, you know, hey, I've been thinking about this. So yes,
That's good. I know that some of my family members will go out into the mountains and process and do self-assessment or self-reflection. I mean, my dad talks about self-reflection, and that he was learning that years ago, and he didn't even know the significance was of what he was doing, because most people don't do that.
no,
Most people don't do self-reflection. So that's a valuable skill to take assessment of how am I doing? You know,
yeah. I think everybody,
without beating yourself up, right?
that's the trick. That's the trick. But I think that as you build that up, and those affirmations for yourself, it gives you a sturdier ground to step on, and then you become more willing to take that step because you know it's going to be okay.
I like that, because not only would you take that step as like a baby step, but what if you have a major decision?
Yeah, that would definitely.
What if you have to move to another town, or what if you have to take a job, or apply for a career, or make a decision in a relationship or something? If you practice this, the ability to be the hero in your own story becomes a little bit easier.
Yes.
So this is good. Let's see where I am. Kathy says, Jurri, your gift is amazing. I encourage people to have their story written. Thank you. I am learning more and more every time I re-listen to my story. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. I'm so glad that Kathy got a story earlier, and I love it. Cristy says, Gail says, Cristy, the mirror sees you. You listen to it. We love you and have for years. And then Alisha is saying, I have comments on Facebook. Well, I don't know how I can get to that, because I don't know why they're not showing up here. So let me search real quick. Just a moment. Guys, thanks for watching, everybody. Let's see if I can find it here. Just a minute. Oh, wow, this is great.
Wow.
Look at this, guys. I don't know why they're not coming up. So Lisa Blakesley says, greetings. Diane. Oh, Diane Excel's here. This is sweet. Lisa says, love, love, love this. Lisa says, gulp. Deborah Hunter, being able to connect with the Lord's sweet shalom, operating from that place of grace, relationship with him allows us to catch our breaths and grow as he stretches us in circumstances. Yes to mere heaven. How lovely. Sarana.
Oh,
Sarana,
beautiful, Sarana.
Relatable. Oh, thank you for
Right on.
watching. I love you too, Sarana. We've been trying to reach you. We've been so busy. You know that you're busy too, Sarana. But Alisha and I really want to connect with you. So let's figure out on a weekend a video chat if possible, because I've been thinking about you for months, and I want to connect. So thank you for watching tonight. Wow, this is so cool. Wow, this is great.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Thank you. So hopefully it'll somehow figure out how this technology works, right?
Right.
Cool. Very cool. Well, so you guys have seen the show, right? And if you want to, if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and you can be alerted of more future broadcasts. And if you want to get a prophetic story from me, you can order one too. You can go to legendsofthewind.com, go to our store, and look for the product, Become a Legend. It's in the description below on YouTube, I believe. And so you can look at that there. And also, I think, on Facebook. And there's a link as well. So, we are growing our business. We are trying to build this. And so if you want to sponsor somebody as well, if you think that, Mother's Day is coming up, for example, let's say you are a mom or know a mother, or have a mother, and you want to encourage them with their own prophetic story, consider purchasing one for them as well. And also, just so you know where the money goes, we're building this. Our goal is to become independent and to be able to do more of these shows. And so you know how I operate. Each story goes into 3 hours or more of my time. It takes about 2 hours for me to write a prophetic story, and I go up. I go look, I write their story, I see and hear, and then I clean it up, and then we do the show, which is about an hour, and that's where we're at now, I think. Let's see, 45 minutes in, and so it takes that amount of time, and I want to be able to reach more people. I think that what we're doing here, we're pioneering something here. This is something that's unique and unconventional. We are very aware of it. Cristy, what would you tell anybody who's watching? How would you encourage them to get a story? What would you say to them from your own heart?
For them to get a story, we don't have to take those stories literally, but you are, in the way you are describing things, in the way we talk, difficult to...
It's hard to put to word?
Yeah.
Because of the experience?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's all good. So, the idea is to have an experience. Like you can go to like a carnival or Disneyland, and we are providing opportunities for experiences that are life-changing. And that's what we want to do, is we want to bring life to you and encouragement.
Yes.
Sound good? See, this live just popped up for me on my evening hike. Oh, cool. Have a good hike. That's sweet. Wow, thank you, Sarana. Cristy, what is the application beyond what we talked about? We talked about loving ourselves and speaking to ourselves, but how would you apply this with your family? How would you encourage them with this story, or any other method of applying it?
Well, you look at the reflection of yourself, and what does that mean, and what does that mean to you? And I would definitely say that the self-image is important. Some people would say it's not, but if we don't have a good inner self-image, we will be horrible to ourselves and think of everybody else but ourselves, therefore depriving ourselves of oxygen that we need to move forward.
And also we like the story talked about stabbing in the heart.
Yes.
So let's be kind to ourselves. This is good.
Yes.
Wow. Well, everybody, your comments are wonderful. Thank you for Jen for your question about what would you do for fun. We all want our hearts to come alive, and the heart of a man coming alive is the glory of God, and that's something that is good, because if we're like, I remember one time one of the people who was trolling on social media on one of my shows says, "Oh, we're supposed to love ourselves. Isn't that grandiose thinking?" And I got to thinking about what that guy was saying, and like, well, what about the opposite? Do we need to hate ourselves? Is that what we're supposed to do? So no, we're supposed to be kind and loving. And so that is, see, Jen says grab packing boxes. And Gail says, Jurri, you knew you could be used by Jesus. So wonderful to see you are. Thanks, Mom. Thank you. Yeah, so it's all good. I know I said so a lot. Sorry about that. But what we want to do is we want to be empowered and to know that we're the hero in our own story. So, Cristy, tonight you've become a legend. You found out who you are. You dealt with your stuff, and now you can go forward.
Sounds awesome.
Sounds good. Everybody, thanks for watching tonight. That wraps up our show. We appreciate your time and your comments and questions and being part of our program. Go to our website, check us out, look at our what it means to be, what is prophetic storytelling, and consider getting yourself a story. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll have a good night. Thanks. Bye.